Welcome back to Hannity. A bizarre day in a Sanford, Florida courtroom where opening arguments began in the second-degree murder trial of George Zimmerman. Now, the 29-year-old is on trial for shooting 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. If convicted, he could face a maximum sentence of life in prison. Earlier today, Zimmerman sat stoically in the court as the prosecution kicked off the trial with a slew of profanity. And then the defense began its case with a knock-knock joke that, well, fell flat on the courtroom. Now, let's take a look at some of today's highlights.
Good morning. Punks. These they always get away. Those were the words in that grown man's mouth as he followed in the dark a 17-year-old boy who he didn't know. And excuse my language, but those were his words, not mine. George Zimmerman did not shoot Trayvon Martin because he had to. He shot him for the worst of all reasons, because he wanted to.
Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing? That's funny.
Yeah. Here was reaction to the strange opening arguments. Former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman and prosecutor Anna-Sigga is with us. What was your reaction? I was shocked at the knock-knock joke.
The knock-knock joke should not have happened. I mean, if you have to apologize at the start, if you have to explain away and tell the jury, if you don't like this, don't hold it against my client, newsflash, don't do it. And it fell as flat as we thought it might have. I mean, that was just a no-no. Yeah. It shouldn't have happened.
Mark, what were your thoughts on the opening arguments?
Well, when you look at the opening arguments for the prosecution, I think they're overreaching with the second-degree murder, and even though they filed that, I think they're overreaching with intent. And as far as the defense, the knock-knock joke, you don't even smile and joke with your colleagues at the prosecution table. You are completely professional in that room, especially in the eyes of the jury.
Yeah, and especially because the parents of Trayvon Martin are there. There's nothing funny about that. And he was almost insulting the jury by making that statement, didn't you think?
I thought so, too. I mean, look, you're still humans, and sometimes a lighter moment happens spontaneously, even during these, horrifically important and grave trials. But that's how they're supposed to happen, not thought out and let's start this. That's not the type of bang the defense wants to go with. Go with their charts, go with their graphs, go with why they think that people will not prove their case. But that wasn't the moment for any lightness.
All right, the one thing that I think the prosecution, Mark, is going to have a hard time with is the injuries that George Zimmerman had. A broken nose, lacerations in the back of the head are consistent with the story that he has told from day one. Obviously, he was punched in the nose, and obviously his head was beaten on the concrete.
Well, Sean, when you've seen a few people in fights and been in them yourself, you will realize that George Zimmerman didn't have very many injuries. Certainly, he fell backwards and hit his head on the concrete once. His head wasn't driven into the concrete repeatedly. He had not a broken nose, but a bloodied nose, and he had no lacerations on his face. So I think he got the worst end of a fist fight, but his escalation of force to meet the fists of a young man, 158 pounds, that's on top of him, to shoot him, he eliminated all other escalations of force that he possibly could have used, whether it was a hard object that was anywhere, or even striking Trayvon Martin with the gun in the side of the head.
I'm with Mark on this. This case is going to be all about the details. And even if it turns out that George Zimmerman was injured in the way that he said, let's not forget, if the prosecution shows that they have said that Mr. Zimmerman pursued Trayvon Martin after the dispatcher said not to, then he is provoking the attack. And so even now, if this scared 17-year-old who is walking home, minding his own business, remember, he is not there to commit any crime. He's trying to go
also under
home.
The eaves. He's not on the street, but it's a rainy night.
But now he has a guy who is following him. Again, if this is the way the evidence bears out, who is following him. And now at this point, we don't know exactly yet what has happened in this moment. And hopefully it becomes clear during the trial. But even if he caused those injuries, and I agree with Mark that, to have your head bashed in, more likely than not, you're going to look much worse than George Zimmerman did. However, the only way that he can legally do those actions that he did by shooting him. He had to believe he was about to die or be mortally, gravely wounded.
He said from day one that that he was told you're going to die tonight, and that he was reaching for his gun.
Well, that's what he said to the police and everyone else afterwards. Whether that happened or not, let's put all the pieces together.
But how about the standard of proof now? That's the issue.
Well, and again, it is up to the prosecution, not the defense. The prosecution has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. It is a high mountain to climb here, and with good reason. You know, George Zimmerman is facing up to the rest of his life in jail if he's convicted of murder. However, the jury also has manslaughter, which means not that there was any intent. They use this more in like a heat of the moment, that at that moment.
I agree with Mark. I think they overcharged. Well, I don't like the fact, Mark, that the scream analysis is not going to be. Well, I guess we lost Mark. Okay, I don't like that the scream analysis isn't going to be allowed. I think it should be.
I don't know. You know, I'm all for science. I use it every day. However, I believe in the jurors. I believe these 6 people can listen for themselves, and let's hope that they can and figure it out.
Anna, thank you. Mark, wherever you are, thank you.